Picture this. March 2020. A grocery store in Phoenix, Arizona. Within 36 hours of the first lockdown announcement, the shelves look like this. Rice, gone. Pasta, gone. Bread, gone. Canned goods stripped bare. And it didn't take a war. It didn't take a hurricane. It took a single government announcement and 48 hours of panic buying to expose exactly how unprepared most households in America actually are. 53%. More than half the country. Less than 72 hours of food security. But here's what I want you to think about. What if right now, today, you could build a 90-day emergency food supply for around $300? What if you could have a stockpile that covers your protein, your calories, your vitamins, and your psychological sanity, and fit it all in a single closet? What if the difference between panic and preparedness was simply knowing which 18 canned foods actually matter? Because that is exactly what we're covering today. I'm going to walk you through the 18 best canned foods to stockpile before SHTF, ranked by real survival value, not just what sounds good on a list. And I'm going to tell you about 3 items in this list that almost no prep channel has ever covered. One of them has a shelf life that will outlive your car. You'll know it when we get there. If you're serious about being prepared, subscribe right now. We drop content like this every single week. And stick around to the very end, because after item number 1, I'm giving you the one system that makes all 18 of these foods actually work together. Most preppers skip it. Most preppers quietly let their entire stockpile expire. I'll show you how to make sure that never happens to you. Let's get into it. Number 18. Canned pumpkin. The overlooked vitamin bomb. We're starting with the item most preppers walk right past in the grocery store, without a second glance. Canned pumpkin. And before you click away, hear me out, because this one earns its spot on the list. First, important distinction, we are talking about 100% pure pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie filling. They look almost identical on the shelf. The pie filling has sugar, spices, and additives you don't want. Pure pumpkin is just pumpkin. Read the label before you buy. Here's what you're actually getting in that can. 1 cup clocks in at around 83 calories, 3 grams of fiber, and over 200% of your recommended daily vitamin A. Vitamin A is not optional. It is essential for immune function, vision, and skin integrity, and it becomes critically important when stress is hammering your immune system and your diet is becoming limited and repetitive. What most people get wrong about canned pumpkin is thinking it's just a baking ingredient. It's not. It's a soup thickener, a fiber source, a meal stretcher, and a psychological lifeline. That last point matters more than you think. Palate fatigue, the phenomenon where your brain starts rejecting familiar foods, is a real documented response to dietary monotony. Pumpkin's natural sweetness, without being candy, gives your palate something different. That matters enormously after 30 days of beans and rice. Stock at least 12 cans. They're inexpensive, they last 3 to 5 years, and your body and your mood will both thank you when fresh vegetables are unavailable. But if pumpkin is overlooked, the next item is practically invisible on most prep lists, and it beats almost everything else here on the protein per dollar calculation. Number 17. Canned lentil soup. The protein ratio nobody calculates. Here's a number that should get your attention. 18 grams of protein per cup, cooked. That's what lentils deliver, and it's a higher protein per calorie ratio than most beans. Yet lentils are almost completely absent from prep channel content. This is a serious gap. Canned lentil soup solves multiple problems at once. You've got your protein. You've got your complex carbohydrates for sustained energy. You've got iron and folate, nutrients that are genuinely difficult to source from shelf-stable foods, and you've got a low glycemic index, which means slower energy release and fewer blood sugar crashes during high-stress scenarios. What most people get wrong here is assuming that canned lentils are nutritionally inferior to dried lentils you cook yourself. They are not. The canning process preserves the nutritional profile effectively. And in an emergency where fuel for cooking is limited, canned lentil soup is ready immediately. Here's a dead simple meal formula that will come in handy. 1 can of lentil soup plus 1 can of diced tomatoes equals a complete filling, genuinely nutritious meal for 2 people. That's roughly 450 calories, solid protein and real flavor, from 2 cans costing under $3 combined. Add at least 20 cans to your stockpile. The price point alone makes this one of the most efficient investments per calorie on this entire list. Lentils give you volume and nutrition. The next item gives you something harder to find in a can. Fat. Real calorie-dense survival-critical fat. Number 16. Canned coconut milk. The high-fat survival secret. When calorie scarcity becomes your daily reality, fat becomes your best friend. Fat delivers 9 calories per gram, more than twice what protein or carbohydrates provide. And if you want dense, shelf-stable fat in a can, nothing touches full-fat coconut milk. One standard can of full-fat coconut milk contains approximately 445 calories. That is remarkable for a single can of liquid. The fat profile includes lauric acid, a medium-chain fatty acid with documented antimicrobial properties, relevant when your immune defenses are stretched thin and your access to medical care is limited. It's also completely dairy-free, which matters enormously if you have family members with lactose intolerance or dairy allergies. What most people get wrong is treating coconut milk purely as a cooking ingredient. Yes, it transforms rice, soup, and beans into genuinely delicious meals. But in a high-calorie demand scenario, you can also consume it directly as a calorie-dense drink. A single cup delivers over 400 calories. When you are burning energy in a crisis and struggling to eat enough, that matters. The pro tip here is combination stacking. Mix 1 can of coconut milk with 1 can of fruit cocktail in juice and a cup of cooked rice. You've just made a complete meal exceeding 600 calories, with good fats, natural sugars, and carbohydrates, using 3 cans from your stockpile. Stock at least 12 cans. This one is a genuine sleeper that belongs in every serious emergency pantry. Now we've covered the overlooked items. Let's get into the classics, starting with the one that's been keeping people alive through every major crisis of the last century. Number 15. Canned chicken. Your complete protein insurance. A single can of canned chicken gives you 40 to 50 grams of complete protein. All 9 essential amino acids. No refrigeration. No cooking required. You can eat it straight from the can if your situation demands it. In a long-term emergency, that is an extraordinary resource. Protein maintenance is not optional in a survival context. Without adequate protein, your body begins breaking down muscle tissue for energy, a process called catabolism. Your immune function drops. Your cognitive sharpness declines. Your physical capacity degrades. A single can of chicken per day provides a significant portion of an adult's daily protein requirement without any preparation whatsoever. What most people get wrong when building a chicken stockpile is buying only one brand. Sodium levels in canned chicken vary dramatically between brands, sometimes by 40 to 50% per serving. In a water-limited scenario, excess sodium accelerates dehydration. Check labels. Buy the lowest sodium version available for the majority of your stock. The versatility of canned chicken is the secondary advantage. Chicken salad if you have mayonnaise. Rice and chicken if you have grains. Chicken soup by adding it to any canned broth or vegetable base. Tacos, wraps, casseroles, stir-fry additions. It's the most adaptable protein on this list. Stock 24 cans per person as your 3-month protein baseline. It costs more per can than beans, but the convenience, the complete amino acid profile, and the zero prep requirement. Chicken covers your protein. But for complete long-term nutritional health, you need omega-3 fatty acids, and the next item has delivered them for over a century. Number 14. Canned tuna. The century-old survival protein with one critical catch. Canned tuna has sustained people through every major catastrophe of the last 100 years. It is packed with protein, omega-3 fatty acids that reduce inflammation and support brain function, vitamin D, and selenium. The shelf life runs 3 to 5 years, and properly stored, some cans have remained safe and nutritious beyond that. At $1 to $1.50 per can, it is one of the most affordable complete protein sources available in shelf-stable form. But here is the catch, and it is a real one. Mercury. Tuna bioaccumulates mercury, and eating it every single day for months creates a genuine health risk. Albacore tuna contains roughly 3 times the mercury of chunk light tuna. If you are buying in bulk, buy chunk light, not albacore. Read the label. The rotation strategy is this. Tuna is one protein source in a rotation of proteins, not your primary daily source. Cycle it with chicken, salmon, sardines, and beans. This keeps your mercury exposure low and prevents the protein monotony that makes people stop eating. Stock 24 to 36 cans, primarily chunk light. The price point makes it easy to build volume. Mercury is just the beginning of what most people get wrong about protein stockpiling. The rotation strategy matters more than the brand, and that theme runs through the next several items on this list. Number 13. Canned salmon. The bone calcium most preppers throw away. Here is something that happens constantly, and it drives nutritionists who work in emergency preparedness absolutely mad. Someone opens a can of salmon, sees the soft white bones, and picks them out and throws them away. They just discarded one of the most valuable nutritional resources in the entire can. The bones in canned salmon are soft, completely safe to eat. They practically dissolve when you mash the fish, and they are a significant source of calcium. One can of pink salmon with bones provides approximately 290 milligrams of calcium, which is roughly 29% of your recommended daily intake. In an extended emergency where dairy products are unavailable, that calcium matters enormously. Calcium deficiency contributes to bone loss, muscle cramps, and cardiovascular stress. It is not a deficiency you want to develop. Salmon also delivers higher omega-3 levels than tuna with significantly lower mercury concern. You can eat it more frequently in your rotation without the same risk. The pro application here is salmon patties, mashed canned salmon combined with crushed crackers and an egg if available, pan-fried with minimal oil. It is a hot, satisfying, protein-dense meal that feels like real food. That psychological value is substantial. Stock 12 to 18 cans. Yes, it costs more than tuna. The nutritional differentiation and lower mercury profile earn the premium. Number 12. Canned vegetables. Your anti-scurvy insurance policy. Scurvy killed sailors by the hundreds 300 years ago. Limbs went weak, gums bled, wounds failed to heal, and people died not from violence, not from starvation. In an extended emergency where fresh produce is unavailable for months, the same risk exists today. Canned vegetables are your insurance against that. The canning process does reduce vitamin C content somewhat, but fat-soluble vitamins and minerals survive extremely well. You are still getting meaningful vitamin A from carrots, meaningful iron from peas and spinach, meaningful fiber from green beans, and meaningful micronutrients from every variety you stock. What most people get wrong is buying 50 cans of green beans and calling it covered. Variety is the entire point. You need corn for carbohydrates and sweetness, peas for protein and fiber, carrots for vitamin A, mixed vegetables for nutritional diversity. Each type serves a different function. Buy only low-sodium or no-salt added versions whenever they are available. You can always add salt to a meal. You cannot remove it. And in a scenario where your water supply is limited, which we need to talk about right now, stop. Before we continue to item 11, I need you to do something. Think about your current stockpile, or the stockpile you are planning to build. Now count how many items on it are high sodium. Canned meats, canned soups, canned stews, regular canned vegetables, most of them are loaded with sodium. And here is the counterintuitive danger that almost no prep channel addresses. In an emergency where your water supply is compromised, a high-sodium diet actively accelerates dehydration. The very food you bought to survive the crisis is making the crisis worse. FEMA's post-disaster health reports consistently flag dehydration as one of the top 3 preventable emergency health problems. The fix is simple. For every high-sodium item in your stockpile, have a low-sodium or no-salt added equivalent. Many brands now produce both versions. It takes 5 seconds to check a label. Stock accordingly. Stock 30 to 50 cans of vegetables across 5 or more types. Distribute the variety deliberately. Number 11. Canned fruit. The morale multiplier. In a 30-day emergency, the biggest threat to most families is not starvation. It is despair. There is a documented phenomenon in disaster nutrition research called dietary monotony-induced intake suppression, which is a clinical way of saying that when people eat the same foods repeatedly, they begin eating less even when food is available. Some studies suggest caloric intake can drop by 20 to 30% over 2 weeks of monotonous diet. In a survival context, that voluntary caloric reduction becomes a serious risk. Canned fruit is your primary tool against this. Peaches, pears, pineapple, mandarin oranges, fruit cocktail, They provide natural sugars for quick energy, a meaningful vitamin C contribution, and most importantly, sweetness. Real natural sweetness that your palate responds to at a deep psychological level. What most people get wrong is buying fruit in heavy syrup. The syrup adds an unnecessary sugar load and makes the fruit less versatile. Buy fruit canned in 100% juice. The juice itself is useful. Pour it into rice while cooking, use it as a flavoring base, drink it as a morale-boosting treat. Nothing in that can goes to waste. Stock 20 to 30 cans across multiple fruit types. Distribute them across your weekly meal rotation deliberately. They are not a luxury, they are a morale management tool. And morale in a crisis is a survival factor. Fruit handles the morale side. The next item handles flavor. And flavor, in a genuine crisis, is what keeps people eating enough to function. Number 10. Canned tomatoes. The flavor foundation. If there is one ingredient that transforms every other can in your stockpile, it is tomatoes. This single category, tomatoes in all their formats, is the flavor foundation that turns survival eating into actual cooking. Here is the nutritional hook that most people do not know. Lycopene, the powerful antioxidant in tomatoes, actually becomes more bioavailable during the canning process. Heat processing breaks down the cell walls and releases lycopene in a form your body absorbs more readily. You are not getting a nutritionally inferior version of tomatoes in a can. In some ways, you are getting a superior one. Beyond that, vitamin C, vitamin A, and potassium round out a strong micronutrient profile across a 2 to 5 year shelf life. The strategic detail most preppers miss is this: different tomato formats serve completely different culinary purposes, and they are not interchangeable. Tomato paste is roughly 6 times more concentrated than tomato sauce. 1 tablespoon of paste delivers the flavor impact of 6 tablespoons of sauce. If you are space limited, buying paste over sauce gives you dramatically more culinary range per can. Crushed tomatoes for sauces. Diced for chili and soups. Whole tomatoes for long-cooked stews. Each has its purpose. There are 3 items coming up in this list that almost no prep channel covers, and one of them has a shelf life that will outlive your car. Keep watching. Number 9. Canned beans. The complete protein you build yourself. Here is a nutrition principle that turns an ordinary survival food into an extraordinary one. Beans alone are an incomplete protein. They are missing certain essential amino acids. But when you combine beans with any grain, rice, pasta, bread, corn, you create a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot produce independently. Together, they do what neither can do alone. This is why beans and rice have been a survival staple across virtually every culture and every civilization throughout human history. The combination is not a coincidence. It is nutritional logic that humans discovered long before they had the science to understand why it worked. 1 can of beans delivers around 400 calories, 25 grams of protein, and significant amounts of dietary fiber, iron, and complex carbohydrates. The shelf life runs 2 to 5 years. And at 80 cents to $1.20 per can, beans represent one of the most extraordinary values in the entire emergency food category. By variety. Black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, navy beans, chickpeas. Each has different flavor profiles and different culinary applications: Mexican, Mediterranean, American, Indian. Variety prevents the monotony we talked about earlier. Stock 50 to 100 cans across varieties. They are cheap. They last. They are filling. And they are the anchor of your caloric base. Number 8. Canned soup. Nutrition and hydration in a single can. This is the only item on this list that addresses 2 critical survival challenges simultaneously: nutrition and hydration. Everything else feeds you. Soup feeds you and hydrates you at the same time. Dehydration is one of the most consistently underestimated threats in emergency scenarios. People focus on food. They undercount their water needs. They are sweating more than usual from stress and physical exertion, eating salty preserved foods, and not compensating with adequate fluid intake. Canned soup, particularly ready-to-eat varieties, provides meaningful fluid content alongside calories and micronutrients, reducing the strain on your water supply. What most people get wrong in their soup planning is not accounting for the water requirements of condensed soups in a water-scarce scenario. Condensed soup requires water to prepare. If your water supply is compromised, condensed soup becomes difficult to use safely. The solution is to stock both. Condensed varieties for space efficiency when water is available. They reduce your storage footprint by roughly 40%. Ready-to-eat varieties for zero-water situations. The psychological dimension of soup is also genuinely significant. Hot soup is comfort at a neurological level. It is associated with warmth, care, and recovery in almost every culture. That comfort in a high-stress scenario reduces cognitive load and helps people maintain calm. Stock at least 30 to 50 cans across a variety of types. Soup handles hydration. The next item handles serious calories. Number 7. Canned chili. 600 calories in one can. This is the item I said earlier might change your situation. Here is exactly why. A quality can of chili, beans, meat, tomatoes, spices delivers 400 to 600 calories in a single container. That is a complete macro profile in one can. Protein from the meat and beans combined. Complex carbohydrates for sustained energy. Fat for satiety and calorie density. Vitamins from the tomato base. In survival arithmetic, 600 calories from one can costing $3 is exceptional value. Compare that to canned vegetables at roughly 80 to 150 calories per can. Chili delivers 4 times the energy density. What most people get wrong is treating chili as a side dish or a snack. It is a complete meal. In an emergency, treat it as one. Open the can. Heat it. Eat it. Done. The pro tip for extending your supply further: pour 1 can of chili over 1 cup of cooked rice. You have just created an 800+ calorie meal for 2 people from a single can of chili and a fraction of your rice supply. That is extraordinary value per resource consumed. Stock 20 to 30 cans. The variety of flavors, turkey chili, beef chili, white bean chicken chili, spicy chili, gives you meaningful variation within the category. Chili is dense. The next item is just as calorie-rich, but it adds something chili cannot: psychological texture. Number 6. Canned beef stew. The meal that tricks your brain. There is an aspect of survival eating that almost no preparedness content addresses, and it comes from disaster psychology research conducted by organizations like the Red Cross and FEMA after major prolonged disasters. What researchers found consistently is that caloric intake in extended emergencies drops not because food is unavailable. Texture matters. Familiarity matters. When your food looks and feels and smells like food, like a real meal that you would have chosen to eat under normal circumstances, you maintain your caloric intake. You sustain your physical and cognitive function. When your food is uniform, textureless, or unfamiliar, your appetite suppresses. Your body starts running on less than it needs. And in a crisis, that caloric deficit compounds into cognitive decline, decision-making errors, and physical weakness at exactly the moment when you need to be sharp. Canned beef stew tricks the psychological machinery that controls appetite. The chunky meat, the potatoes, the gravy. It reads as a real meal because it is a real meal. And that familiarity, that sense of normalcy in an abnormal situation, is worth an enormous amount. I want to stop for just 60 seconds here, because this point changes how you should think about your entire stockpile. Most prep guides are optimized purely for calories and shelf life. That is correct, but incomplete. Disaster psychology is clear. People who eat food they enjoy consume more calories, maintain better mood, make better decisions, and report significantly higher morale in extended emergency scenarios. The enjoyment of your food is not a luxury in a crisis. It is a performance factor. Build a stockpile that you would actually want to eat, because when the time comes, the food you skip in disgust is calories that never get into your body. At least 20% of what you stock should be items you genuinely enjoy eating. Comfort foods. Familiar foods. Foods with texture and flavor you recognize. Canned beef stew is one of the best examples of this principle in a can. Stock 15 to 20 cans. It is not the cheapest item on the list. It is worth every cent. Number 5. Evaporated milk. The calcium gap filler. There are nutritional gaps that beans, rice, tuna, and vegetables simply cannot fill. Calcium is the primary one. And evaporated milk is the best shelf-stable solution to that specific gap. Evaporated milk is regular milk with roughly 60% of the water removed. What remains is a concentrated shelf-stable liquid that delivers calcium, vitamin D, protein, and healthy fats. The shelf life, and this is a correction from what many sources publish, is 2 to 5 years, not 1 to 2. The 1 to 2 year figure is the manufacturer's conservative label recommendation. Properly stored evaporated milk has a substantially longer functional life. The calorie density is exceptional. Regular milk runs about 150 calories per cup. Evaporated milk runs approximately 340 calories per cup. When you are in a calorie-scarce scenario, that 2.3 times calorie density per serving matters significantly. What most people get wrong is treating evaporated milk solely as a cooking ingredient. Diluted 1-to-1 with water, it becomes drinkable milk. Undiluted, it adds richness and calories to coffee, tea, soups, and sauces. For children, who have higher calcium requirements for bone development, maintaining access to a milk-like product has both nutritional and psychological value that is hard to replace. Stock 12 to 24 cans. The sweetened condensed milk variation, evaporated milk with added sugar, is also worth stocking separately. Milk handles your minerals. The next 3 items are where this list gets genuinely interesting, because they are the 3 that almost no prep channel covers. We are in the final tier now. Number 4. Canned corned beef hash. The calorie bomb with a bad reputation. This is not health food. That is not the point. In a caloric scarcity scenario, which is what a genuine extended emergency creates, fat is not your enemy. Fat is your most calorie-efficient resource. Fat delivers 9 calories per gram. Protein and carbohydrates each deliver 4. The math is simple. In a situation where you need maximum energy from minimum food, fat wins. Canned corned beef hash gives you approximately 400 to 500 calories per can, complete animal protein with all essential amino acids, and a significant fat content that delivers sustained energy and satiety. The shelf life runs 2 to 5 years, and the preparation is genuinely minimal. Open the can, heat the contents. What most people get wrong is the health objection. Under normal nutritional circumstances, the saturated fat and sodium content of corned beef hash are legitimate concerns. In an emergency where you are burning calories through physical labor, stress, and temperature regulation, those same properties become assets. High caloric density. Sustained energy release. Satiety that keeps you functional. The psychological bonus is the breakfast association. Hash is traditionally a morning meal, and maintaining regular meal structure, breakfast, lunch, dinner, is a documented strategy for preserving mental stability in prolonged crisis situations. Starting the day with a hot, substantial, familiar meal provides psychological grounding that affects decision-making throughout the rest of the day. Stock 15 to 20 cans. It is not glamorous. In a genuine survival situation, it is nutritional gold. Number 3. Canned jackfruit, the item nobody expects. This is one of the 3 items I promised you at the beginning. The one almost no prep channel covers. Here it is, canned jackfruit. Stay with me, because this one is more practical and more available than you probably think. Young, unripe jackfruit, packed in brine or water, not in syrup, has a fibrous, meat-like texture that is genuinely remarkable. When cooked and seasoned, it shreds like pulled pork. It absorbs flavors like chicken. It holds up in stews like beef. And it does this while being shelf-stable for up to 2 years, available at Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and increasingly at Walmart and mainstream grocery chains. Why does this matter in a survival stockpile? Meal variety. Psychological sanity. After weeks of tuna, chicken, and beans, jackfruit introduces a completely different texture and culinary experience. It does not taste like fruit when prepared this way. It tastes like whatever you season it with, and seasoning it with taco spice, curry, or barbecue flavors is straightforward with shelf-stable spice packets. The practical meal formula: 1 can of jackfruit, 1 can of black beans, 1 packet of taco seasoning. You have just made a complete flavorful taco filling for 3 to 4 people. Stock 8 to 12 cans. This is a genuine information gap. Most people building a survival stockpile have never considered this, and that is exactly why it belongs on this list. You have just hit the final 2 items. Numbers 2 and 1 are the most debated items in the entire prepper community. Here is why, and here is what the argument actually gets wrong. Number 2. Canned Spam. The most honest survival food. Spam has a branding problem. It has become a cultural punchline, a symbol of processed, low-quality food that health-conscious people avoid. And under normal circumstances, that criticism has some merit. High sodium processed pork, sodium nitrate preservation. These are not selling points for your everyday diet. But this is not a conversation about everyday nutrition. This is a conversation about what keeps you alive and functional when the grocery store is not an option. One can of Spam delivers approximately 1,080 calories and 42 grams of protein. The official Hormel shelf life guidance is 2 to 5 years, and there is significant anecdotal documentation of cans remaining safe and edible well beyond that in cool, stable storage conditions. It requires no preparation, no refrigeration, no cooking, though frying it transforms the eating experience significantly. Here is the counterintuitive truth about the sodium. In a normal sedentary life, excess sodium is a problem. In a crisis scenario where you are physically active, sweating from labor or stress, and consuming a diet otherwise low in electrolytes, the same property that makes Spam an unhealthy snack food makes it a strategically useful survival ration. The cultural history speaks for itself. Spam sustained Allied troops through World War II. It remains a beloved staple in Hawaii, South Korea, the Philippines, and throughout the Pacific Islands, regions with deep histories of resource scarcity. Since its introduction in 1937, over 8 billion cans have been sold. That is not the legacy of a food that fails when tested. The psychological bonus, by the way, is real. Most people won't touch your Spam in a shared emergency scenario. You have a protein source that is less likely to be taken, traded away under pressure, or depleted by others. Stock 10 to 20 cans. It is not glamorous. Neither is surviving. Spam is second. Nothing beats what is coming at number 1. Number 1. Canned sardines. The most nutritionally complete shelf-stable food. Tiny. Cheap. Ignored by the overwhelming majority of American preppers. And nutritionally, almost irreplaceable. Let me explain why sardines take the top spot, because it is not obvious until you look at the nutritional profile carefully. Sardines deliver complete protein, high-quality omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, the forms that directly reduce inflammation, support brain function, regulate mood, and protect cardiovascular health under stress. Vitamin D, which becomes absolutely critical if you are sheltering indoors for extended periods without regular sunlight exposure. Vitamin B12, which supports neurological function and energy production. Selenium, a powerful antioxidant. And calcium from the soft, completely edible bones. Now look at the rest of your stockpile and ask yourself, which of those other 17 items gives you omega-3 EPA and DHA? None of them. Sardines are filling a nutritional space that is genuinely difficult to address with any other shelf-stable food. The objection I hear constantly is flavor. Sardines taste too strong. Here is what those people do not realize. Sardines come in dramatically different flavor profiles depending on their preparation. Sardines in olive oil taste completely different from sardines in tomato sauce, which taste completely different from sardines in mustard. If you tried one variety and did not enjoy it, you tried one version of one product. Try them in tomato sauce on crackers. The flavor is mild, rich, and genuinely satisfying in a way that bears no resemblance to the strong, fishy version people are imagining. The shelf life runs 3 to 5 years. The sustainability case is also strong. Sardines are abundant, reproduce rapidly, and are not subject to overfishing concerns that affect larger species. Per dollar, sardines represent among the highest nutritional density of any shelf-stable food available. Stock a minimum of 24 tins. Ideally 48. Buy multiple flavor preparations, at least 3 different varieties, to test your palate and build flexibility into your rotation. Open 1 tin at a time with no waste, no refrigeration, no complexity. That is your number 1. That is your 18. And now, before I close out, I want to give you the one system that turns these 18 cans into an actual working food security strategy. Most preppers skip this entirely. And their $300 stockpile quietly expires on the shelf. Bonus. The FIFO rotation system. Make your stockpile last forever. FIFO. First in, first out. It is the inventory management principle that every grocery store, every restaurant, and every military logistics operation uses, and it is the thing most home preppers never implement. Here is the problem it solves. You buy 30 cans of tuna. You stack them on a shelf. 2 years later, you add 20 more cans. You put them in front of the old ones because it is easier. Now your oldest cans, the ones expiring soonest, are buried in the back. The new cans get used. The old cans keep aging. Eventually, you pull out a can from 2021 and 2027 and make a difficult decision. FIFO prevents this with two simple rules. Rule 1. New cans always go in the back. Old cans always come from the front. Every single time. Without exception. If you have to pull everything out and restack to do it correctly, you do that. Once it becomes habit, it takes 30 seconds. Rule 2. Use a marker. Write the purchase month and year on the lid of every can when you buy it. Not the expiration date from the label, your purchase date. This tells you at a glance how long each can has been in your stockpile, and it makes rotation decisions effortless. The third piece is what separates a dead stockpile from a living one. A dead stockpile is food you bought and stored and never touch. A living stockpile is integrated into your regular diet. You eat from it weekly. You replace what you use. You rotate continuously. Your stockpile is not a museum, it is a rolling inventory. Practically, this means when you are doing your regular grocery shopping, you buy a few extra cans of whatever is on your list. You bring them home. You put the new ones in the back. You move the oldest ones forward. Your stockpile stays fresh, stays current, and never quietly expires on you. The 90-day rolling model works like this. Your target is 90 days of food security. You stock to that level. You eat from the front of your stockpile weekly. You replenish from the back when you shop. You never let the total drop below a 60-day baseline. And once a year, maybe in January, maybe in September, pick a date, you do a full audit. You check every date. You consume or donate anything approaching the end of its window. You restock and reset. That is the system. It is not complicated. It takes commitment more than intelligence. And it is the difference between a stockpile that works and a collection of expired cans you feel guilty throwing away. All right. That is the full list: 18 best canned foods to stockpile before SHTF, plus the rotation system that makes all of it actually functional. Here is what I want you to do right now. Drop a hashtag in the comments. Just this symbol. That is it. Just a hashtag. It tells me you made it to the end. It tells the algorithm this video is worth watching, and it helps me keep making content like this. One character. You can do it in 2 seconds. If this video was useful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to the friend who is always talking about being prepared but has not actually started. Post it in your preparedness group. This information does more good in more hands. Subscribe if you have not already, because next week I am covering 10 foods that last 25 years or longer, and I am starting with one that archaeologists discovered in ancient Egyptian tombs, thousands of years old, and it was still edible. Stay ready. Not scared. Ready.